Right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to By Accident or Design. If you've not tuned in before, this is a snackable live stream series that celebrates all of the honest moments in business, marketing, and design, from mistakes to wins and all of the whoa moments in between. And today, we have a fun guest. She is Morgan Ziontz, the Product Education Manager at Jotform. Morgan is passionate about helping people do their best work and has spent many years crafting sessions that educate users on how to make the most of their product. So welcome, Morgan. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. I don't know if you're having good weather today, but we are here in South Carolina. So it all feels great. And I'm excited for spring to come through. And I'm excited to be chatting with you today.
Yeah, it's kind of hit or miss here. One day I'll be 65, the next day I'll be 45. I'm in the Bay Area of California, so kind of all over the place. But yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully spring will be
Fall
here soon.
spring.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's hop right on in. So, as a product education manager and webinar manager, in your experience, how important or effective are visual aids to really nailing your message? At Visme, design and graphics are really our bread and butter. So, as a webinar manager, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, they are, visual aids are, I would say, crucial to getting your message across. I do a lot of webinars here at Jotform, and a lot of those are product education. So for those, I really try to jump into demos as soon as possible. So I'll give a little bit of background, and there's always images on the slide so that there's some context. But I find that most people learn a lot more effectively with, especially with examples, but with any sort of visual aid. So yeah, in our slides, you'll see not too much text, always a visual aid, and then the slides will be pretty short. And then we get out into a demo where I show people, exactly what they'll be replicating on their end when it's time for them to do it. But yeah, absolutely critical to getting a message across and to really increasing people's learning of how to do anything.
Yeah, I think demos are even like taking a presentation or taking, a slide deck and really bringing it to life. So you can even work backwards. So even if you are working at a company that you don't necessarily have the capacity to do a full demo, having a really, really great pitch deck is kind of going to be the next layer down from a demo. So I think that they really go hand in hand. So definitely appreciate your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, in the cases that we don't do demos and webinars, which does happen occasionally if it's not really a product specific webinar, we do still include a lot of visual aids, examples of what they'd be looking at, charts, whatever it is that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about ways that visual aid can aid your marketing efforts. And with the trend, or it's not really a trend, it's just kind of the landscape right now of low code and no code applications. It's really, to me, it's really been like bridging the gap of companies who don't necessarily have the capacity for large teams and large scale development. So how do you see these low code apps, really helping solopreneurs and small teams?
Yeah, that's something we talk about a lot at Jotform. A lot of our customer base is small and medium businesses and folks who don't have access to very expensive products. And it's really, I think, democratizing opportunity for a lot of people to be able to do what they need to do. One of my favorite examples to use in our demos at Jotform is a bakery. I'm a baker in my free time, so that's always my default example. But if you think about a bakery that's launching, that is somebody who has their recipes perfected and probably has come up with a space and how they'll design their space. But that is probably, or might not be somebody who's super tech savvy. So, when it comes to creating a website to, talk about the business, talk about the background, announce flavors, take orders, schedule pickups, that could be really difficult. Probably not something that person's going to do themselves. And it could be very expensive for them to hire somebody to do that, hire somebody to keep up a website anytime there's an update to a scheduling widget or whatever it might be. So no code tools make that a lot more accessible to people like that who otherwise wouldn't have that opportunity, might not be doing that. Another example, and that's using bakeries again, might be social media. What are they doing with their social media? They want to really, social media is how we do everything these days. So they really want to get the word out there, but they don't have time to be posting on Facebook and Instagram all day long, or TikTok, whatever. But there are no-code tools that they can use to help plot that out and schedule that in advance. So it's really, I think no-code tools, low-code tools are really setting these people up for success, and setting people who otherwise wouldn't be able to access the tools they need to be able to do everything that they need without having to know any coding, without having to pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah, and I also think it takes the intimidation factor away, and really that barrier of entry from, back in having, for example, websites or even graphic design. For example, Visme, we are for professional businesses and entrepreneurs and enterprise teams, but having that lower barrier of entry, same with Jotform, and it's accessible to anyone to hop in and build these professional whether it's designs or workflows, is I'm excited to see where this takes it for, smaller businesses in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I know just with Jotform, people are managing entire businesses in the platform. And they have their forms that they're using. And for anybody who doesn't know, Jotform is a powerful online form building tool, no code. So they can use forms to take orders, and then can use tools within the system to manage those orders as well, and even kind of build a mini CRM out of that. So again, that saves a ton of time and cost to those folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the trend of, us talking about simplifying your business management and your marketing, I would love to know a few pieces, a few must-have pieces that you recommend to market or make your business's webinar a super success.
Yeah, for webinars specifically, and for marketing in general, I think knowing your audience is key, and that goes for SaaS companies, bakeries, just talking to your friends, whatever, any kind of marketing. That really knowing who your target audience is the key step. But hand in hand with that is knowing how to reach them and getting input from them. So for webinars, I would say, we target a specific audience. It's usually customers in our cases, again, since we're doing a lot of customer education. But I also like to use registration forms as an opportunity to get input from the audience into what they'd like to see in that webinar. So that, of course, means I'm getting a lot of very specific questions and some that are just really general questions, but those really help me in knowing where our audience is coming from. Are these new users? Are they experienced users? It also helps me in knowing what kind of content to prepare and to really be able to speak to them. So, what am I going to highlight in my examples? What are they most asking about? What are their questions most about? So those are, I'd say, again, the key things, the three things that I think go in hand: know your audience, get feedback from your audience, and communicate with your audience. It's really, that is, I would say, the biggest key for me in creating successful webinars. Another thing is to be prepared. I've been doing webinars for a long time, and I have attended many webinars, and I will say, it can be really distracting when somebody is fully reading off notes, or doesn't really seem to be fully prepared to talk about what they're talking about. I do see that occasionally, but
I'm going to make sure I don't look at my notes too often.
I mean, I look at my notes too. We all have to look at notes at some point, but people who are very obviously reading off of notes, I think is it can be a little bit distracting. And so I personally just try to really, really know my content. And just going back to Jotform being a no-code tool, I've been in SaaS companies for 15 years. I'm not a technical person, so the fact that I can learn about Jotform well enough to educate people about it, I think says a lot about the platform and no-code tools in general. But yeah, just rehearsing what I'm going to talk about, and again, being prepared for the questions that might come up. That's my other big key for webinars.
Awesome. I do want to reiterate your point about getting feedback. I think that it's really important, especially us in not an echo chamber, but when you work in SaaS, when you work in marketing, when you work in whatever industry your specialization is. I think it's really easy to, you're talking to people who know exactly what you're talking about all day long. And so you think you might know what your customer or your audience, wants to hear, but until you really tap in and ask them directly, hey, what do you want to learn? What do you want us to talk about, to dive deeper into?
Mhm.
Don't play the guessing game,
Yeah.
really tap in.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that when people put their questions in registration forms, that is so critical to what I'm going to say in the webinar. So, yeah, it's absolutely very helpful to know what your actual audience is going to expect from you.
Yeah. So besides webinars, if we kind of derail the train a little bit, what are your favorite ways to nurture communities online, especially for, as we're talking about these SaaS tech-based startup type of communities and businesses?
My personal favorite tactic is to just try to talk to people as much as possible to go back to the feedback. My last company, we had about 350 users when I started, and we would try to connect with those people annually at the very least. We can't do that at Jotform. We have about 18 million users, so I can't speak to everybody, unfortunately, but I do try to find any way to encourage people to reach out to me and to share their feedback. So that's one of the things that, I personally do and personally really value. I always leave my email at the end of webinars. I invite people to get in touch with me with their questions and with examples that they're doing so that I can, see what the community is doing and, applaud them for the work that they're doing. But if they have questions, I try to answer them myself. I try to be a human contact, a human touch point. If I can't answer it, I will, share with our support team who is fully equipped to answer those questions. But really just any opportunity to connect with people and you have a one-on-one personal connection with people is really one of the things that I think is most key to building your community.
So important. So if you, excuse me, you mentioned that you really aim to have at least an annual get together. I mean, what does that look like? Is that an online fireside chat, like a happy hour? Is it a Zoom call? What does that look like for you?
We're not doing anything like that currently at Jotform. Like at our my last company, we were doing annual one-on-one calls and had user group meetings. But I think largely still because we're all recovering from COVID, it's hard to have in-person meetings. So we do webinars at least every other week. So that is one place where people do come together here at Jotform. And we're still looking at how to explore expanding that moving forward.
Yeah, so we have at Visme, one of our incentives for some of our pro plan users is an online community. We have about 500 members right now, and I think it's super important. Our CEO Paymon will hop in and ask for feedback on new features and really giving these users. I call them the top 1%. I don't think that's statistically like the right number, but like our top most active users, kind of some insight and transparency. I think transparency is so key as well to feeling like you're a part of the growth and the drive of the company. And it's not so much the company talking at the consumer. It's, hey, we're in this together, and I love that bit of community around it all.
Yeah, it's so important. And again, just any opportunity to actually connect with your audience, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's a small group, getting that feedback. Again, I always ask for that feedback after webinars. We do always have beta testers for new products or new features as well. So that is, the super critical part of getting a community built for your organization.
Yeah. Well, so communities, right? But I would love to kind of ask you a couple personal, professional questions about your kind of road to success. So here at By Accident or By Design, it's we talk about not everything is flowers and rainbows, and sometimes there's some missteps along the way, but that's what makes the journey so exciting or adventurous, you could call it. So I'd love to know, what is the happiest accident that's happened to you that has led you to where you are now?
It's that's it's a great question. And I think it's really important to celebrate those moments, whatever they might be. I left my last job without something else lined up. It was just a difficult time for me, and it was kind of taking a toll on my mental and physical health. And I just needed a break, and didn't expect that it would be a long break. I was already interviewing here and there, and I didn't really prioritize job hunting for a while. I took some time and did interviews here and there, but whatever. And then several months into that, COVID hit, so I wound up being unemployed for not fully employed for about 2 years,
Wow.
which was very difficult. And right before COVID hit, days before the lockdown started, I found out I was pregnant. So that was kind of a surprise, as well as not finding a job for a long period of time.
Big surprise.
It was a big surprise, yeah. And at the time, there was a lot of stress, as you could probably imagine. We don't know what's going on with COVID. I don't know what's going on with my pregnancy. It was kind of a high risk pregnancy. I didn't have a job. I had a lot of money saved up, thankfully, but I didn't have an income incoming. And that time, other than the stress, allowed me to take time for myself to heal my body from the mental and physical stress that I had been dealing with prior to getting pregnant, and allowed me to, grow a healthy baby. And I started work at Jotform about 5 months after she was born. I was interviewing, of course, interviewing here and there. I had had a really disastrous interview the day before my final round with Jotform. I was with the managing director, and I felt really antagonistic. And then on the flip side, I met the Jotform crew the next day, and they were so kind and so nice. And I really felt like I understood the product and connected with them. And here I am almost 2 years later, and I have a healthy baby girl, and great job. And I, could not be where I am without that accident of having, being unemployed during that very long period of time, very confusing period of time for everybody.
And I don't think, obviously, maybe this wasn't ideal timing, but I do think there's something to be said about, and I love this growing kind of conversation online and IRL in real life, is that personal time and taking care of yourself is so, so important and crucial, not only to just, yourself, your family, but also I do think that having rest is important to your
Yeah.
career as well, because without rest and without resetting, you can't bring your best self to your job and your passion. So I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, it was the happiest accident. It was never an accident to leave. I have no regrets about leaving. It just took a little bit longer than I thought it would to land on my feet and to be my full self again. But, definitely am there now.
Yeah. Awesome. And congratulations on your new baby.
Oh, thank you. Well, she's almost two and a
Still,
half now. She's
still a
not quite
kid.
new anymore, but yes, she is she's my whole world.
That's great. Okay, cool. So let's chat design. Design doesn't have to just be a pamphlet and a presentation. Design is all around us. That's what we like to celebrate at Visme. So I'd love to know, do you have a piece of design that is most memorable to you? And some examples, I think design can also be a piece of architecture that speaks to you. And for me, Philadelphia, they have murals all over on all the streets, and like Philadelphia is a very mural heavy city.
Yeah.
That speaks to me. I'm just curious, do you have anything like that speaks to you?
Yeah, it's kind of along the same lines. I am very drawn to color. I have not fully planned vacations around seeing colorful places, but definitely have looked for colorful places when I am planning a trip. Many years ago, I got to go to Curacao in the Caribbean, and there's a street there with a lot of really colorful buildings, and that was just a super memorable thing, something I think about pretty often. I think, those old iPod commercials where it was just the solid color with the silhouette. I could not have wanted an iPod more because of those commercials. So really anything with color for me, I think as grownups, sometimes we feel like, we need to be more muted, but I try to live my life in color. I try not to be muted. There's a lot of color in my home as well. So yeah, anything like that. But Curacao is a highlight. I know, I was in Sweden a few years ago, and there's also a similar, architecture where the buildings are many colors, and really loved that as well. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you say the color thing, especially with you having a 2-year-old. So this whole sad beige trend of
Yeah.
kids clothes, I'm not about it. So I'm glad that you are a fellow color enthusiast.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get very sad if I have to put her in anything neutral. I don't often have myself in anything neutral, so teaching her to be like me with her
Yeah.
clothing always.
Yeah, I love that. And if anyone is watching who's like, what is sad beige? If you go to TikTok and just do hashtag sad beige,
Yeah,
you'll get it immediately.
it's
It's crazy. So yeah, so let's wrap up here a little bit. Where can people find you? Do you have any events coming up you'd like them to attend? You've got the floor to plug anything you want.
yeah. I mean, we're doing webinars pretty much all the time at Jotform. So if you are interested in Jotform, I would say check out jotform.com/webinars. You'll see upcoming sessions there. You can also check out youtube.com/the Jotform for previous sessions. And much like with my own webinars, I always, like I said, welcome people to get in touch with me directly. You can reach me at Morgan at Jotform, Morgan at Jotform. Be happy to answer any questions you have. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. So happy to answer any questions there too.
Awesome. We do have a YouTube comment from Morph, and he's wondering, are vibrant colors a new trend for 2023? I certainly hope so. We can talk to our designers about that, but what do you think, Morgan?
Well, in line with loving color, I'm also a big fan of Pantone and everything they do. So, for those in the audience who don't know, Pantone is a color company, and every year they release their color of the year. And this year's is fuchsia. It's like a very bright pink. And I think that that speaks a lot to what we can expect for the rest of the year. And it's a solid color for me. It's one that I love in general. So, yeah, hopefully, I always like to see color elements, and hopefully Pantone is setting the trend there for there to be some bright, vibrant colors in all of the marketing we see this year.
That's a great point. And I love when Pantone drops their color of the year. It's so fun, like anticipating.
Yeah, my family and I always have a competition. We try to guess what it might be, and guess what they're going to name it, and put a $5 bet in on that. So,
Oh,
always,
fun. I
yeah,
love that. Maybe I should institute that for Visme this year. That's super
yeah,
fun.
yeah, totally, absolutely
Awesome.
recommend it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. For anyone who's live with us or watching the recording, we do this bi-weekly. It's by accident or design. And I hope you join us for the next episode. And thank you so much, Morgan.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks to everybody for joining us.
Yeah. Bye, guys.